We are back, and I am so happy to be joined once again by Liz Pancotti, Managing Director of Policy and Advocacy at Groundwork Collaborative, former economic advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders. Liz, thanks so much for coming on the show today. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So you want to start with this, because we got to laugh as the flames dance around us, but the DOGE people are idiots, and it's taken less than 24 hours to disprove their claim that they have saved $55 billion by scraping our treasury for personal data so Elon Musk can make his version of Venmo on Twitter. So this account, all of this stuff, they're just taking screenshots. It's really been backed up by other reporting here. Went through it really well. Momentum chaser, got to give them credit here. They're claiming that $55 billion has been saved via the Musk groypers going through everything. And let's see if this is the case. All right. So here's one. The first thing this person did was add up the saved column for all the canceled contracts in real estate. The numbers are $16.5 billion and $0.14 billion, respectively. Odd. Since almost all the purported savings come from contracts, let's focus on that. So this is the biggest ticket item. They're talking about the DHS contract, and they listed as saving $8 billion. Actually, it's $8 million. So they must have tried to automate scraping.
Math is hard, Emma. Math is really hard, Emma.
They missed a zero. So now...
it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
All among us.
All of us. So... that's an $8 million contract that they had publicly claimed was $8 billion. All right, here we go. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the only error that they made. And clearly they're using AI for this, which we can talk about. But scroll down to the next one. Then these USAID contracts listed at $655 million each. So $2 billion total. Wow. Wait, these are IDVs, not contracts. The $655 million is the entire set aside being triple counted. In the first 5 years, only $73 million was awarded and only 2 years remain. People are going to get the idea, but keep going.
This is like if you had a lease for 12 months and in the last month you left your lease and you said you saved your last $1,000 in rent, but you've already paid the other 11 months worth. But because you're canceling your lease early, you can say you saved all 12 months worth.
Right. Is there any more here? Just keep scrolling down a little bit. The Social Security IT services contract, they say it's worth $1 billion. Well, again, this contract spans 6 years. 80% has already been spent, to your point, Liz. More like $250 million in savings spread over the next 3 years. That's $80 million a year.
But we don't need IT services at the Social Security Department because we've got DOGE over there.
We do. We have them, and we can rely on those 19 to 24-year-olds. People get the idea. There's a series of lies that this claim has relied upon. Where are we at right now in terms of the actual amount saved by Elon and DOGE?
Our friend Momentum Chaser added it all up. It's actually really annoying for people who are purportedly computer scientists. Their table, you have to just scroll through it. Like you can't just export the whole thing to Excel. So
that's probably by design, right?
No, sure. Yeah. They've corrected it to $8 million
total.
Which 7.9 of that is just like newspaper subscriptions.
So, and last night, Elon Musk claimed and Trump that they're going after $1 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse. But that's now, after nearly a month of this, they found $8 million in contracts that they're going to categorize as waste, fraud, and abuse to cancel.
Yeah, I think my colleague Alex said it really well this morning. He said it's come from misunderstandings, math errors, and typos. So, can you get $8 million worth of misunderstandings, math errors, and typos? Probably. Can you get $1 trillion or $2 trillion? I'm bearish on that.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess then take us through this past month. As somebody who works in economic policy, as I mentioned, you work for Senator Bernie Sanders, and I did mistakenly say the Groundwork Collective. I meant Groundwork Collaborative. My bad. But what has your assessment been, I guess, over the past few months? And can you explain to people why this effort by Musk to essentially cut funds that have already been allocated by Congress should be considered wildly illegal and unconstitutional.
It's definitely illegal. It's definitely unconstitutional. I think the courts Republicans unfortunately spent 45 years stacking the courts full of conservative judges and justices. So it's going to take a bit, and they've got some favorable folks to go through. I think the issue we have is that, the lawyers are going to fight this in court. That's great. It takes a lot of time to do that. And what the real problem is that our elected officials are really not realizing that normal people don't care about courts, and they want them to do something about it. And so there's pulling out from our friends at Data for Progress this week that 67% of Dem or Dem-leaning voters say the party is not doing enough to stand up to Trump and Musk, which I think, I'm not sure what the other 33% of people are seeing, but I feel like we're all rolling over here, which is really unfortunate. You've got a couple folks, I think Greg Casar, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, had a great clip in a hearing last week where he said that Elon Musk is going after your grandma's dollar a day instead of, wealthy billionaires' money. I think they've got to do something. So we partnered with Hart, a research firm, and Public Citizen to figure out how Democrats can talk about this. And you'll be shocked to know. You'll be shocked to know that all they have to do is say that Elon Musk is raiding Social Security, Medicaid, and food stamps to pay for tax cuts to billionaires. It's very easy. That's exactly what they're doing, and we just need to call them on it. They're
already plummeting in popularity. I mean, Elon Musk is by generous metrics, -15 in favorability. So folks already intrinsically understand that they don't like what's going on. Bradley, do you have that PDF that I just mentioned? So this is from last week. You mentioned the Groundwork Collaborative and others, Public Citizen, Hart Research, worked on this. Looking at just the bar chart at the end here. Yeah. So when you describe things in the terms that you just did, Liz, you can see how that means the baseline unfavorability versus the one where you use the messaging that you just said, where you get specific about what they're going after. And that's a plus 23 increase in very unfavorable, +2 increase in somewhat unfavorable. And you're well over, I think they're 50% with unfavorability for their actions. Why did you think it was important to test some of these messages, and what were some of the other findings that you found that you and others found when looking at this?
We saw folks, especially in the fall, as Trump and Musk announced DOGE. If you just say government efficiency, that's pretty popular. People want their government to be efficient. They don't want it to be wasteful. They want it to work for them. So if you say we're going to create a Department of Government Efficiency, on face, people are not skeptical of that. They are okay with that mission. They don't know a lot about it. And so when we first asked people, what do you think about DOGE? 33% say, I don't know what that is, and I don't know what they're doing. And it's very, very easy to close that gap if you simply say a billionaire, the world's richest man, is using the shell of a government agency to go in, get all of your personal information, get your grandma's social security number, fire literally veterans who take care of veterans. Emma, I saw you tweeted this out. Veterans who take care of veterans at the Veterans Administration, fire them, fire the scientists working on avian flu in the midst of an egg price crisis. And do all of this for the sole purpose of giving themselves tax cuts. If you just tell voters exactly what it is, then they're not so hot on DOGE or on Elon Musk. And in fact, when we tell them that Elon Musk is in charge of DOGE, they are even more cold to the idea. So I think on its face, I think we have an issue of, saying we're cutting waste, fraud, and abuse is very popular. People have been saying that. Bernie Sanders has been saying that about Pentagon contracts for 30 years. And when you get down to the brass tacks of what they're doing, defunding Medicaid, throwing people off food stamps, firing nurses at community health centers, that's not so popular, especially when they're going to use those savings to pay for $5 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires.
And the how does this work in combating what the Republicans are trying to do with their budget proposal? Because you have part of what makes it so, I think, difficult to attack, and it shouldn't be as difficult as Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are making it, but part of why I think it's hard to get your foot in the door here is basically because you have Donald Trump going on television and saying, I'm not going to cut any Medicaid, not going to touch Medicaid, not going to touch Social Security, not going to touch Medicare. But the House Republicans' budget, and really the Senate's too, I know Lindsey Graham's working on one, not sure what the status is of that, but the proposal would almost eliminate Medicaid as a program, and they're also slashing food stamps, student aid, and more. What are some of the difficulties of messaging against this when you have this Republican agenda that sounds different than what Trump is saying publicly, and even Elon Musk?
I think Republicans are in for a ride to see if they even have the votes for this over in the House. You've got 10-ish members of the House Freedom Caucus who are very insistent that these tax cut extensions have to be paid for and that we have to reduce the deficit. Unfortunately, finding $2 trillion in mandatory spending, things like Medicaid, SNAP, programs that really do help a lot of working class people who they themselves voted for Trump and these Republicans. Cutting those programs is not so popular, even in the Republican caucus. You've had 8-ish members come out and say, well, whoa, I didn't know that I was signing up for cutting Medicaid. So while the House has passed this kind of blueprint, it's a budget resolution. It kicks off the process. It's technically not a law. While they've passed a thing that says that they will cut up to $800 billion from Medicaid, $200 billion from food stamps. They're going to, I think, have a really tough time getting that over the finish line, even to kick off the process. They don't have a lot of votes to spare in the Senate. You can pick off 3 or 4 members that say, well, I don't want Medicaid touched in my district. And then you're back at square one. So I think, Speaker Johnson, Donald Trump today is saying, I want to move forward with Speaker Johnson's plan. Speaker Johnson, the House is out this week. Speaker Johnson thinks he can get it over the finish line next week when they're back in DC. I think they're going to have some real problems now that their members are looking under the hood at exactly what it takes to offset $4.5 trillion for tax cuts for the wealthy.
And the way the message that you describe this, I think that piece of it is really important, talking about billionaires basically stealing from us. But the second piece to connect it, for me at least, to the Republican legislative agenda is to say, okay, you're concerned about, waste or the government not being efficient or whatever, or us needing to be very financially responsible, fiscally responsible. The simple solution is to raise taxes on the wealthy. And outside of a handful of Democrats, frankly, I'm not seeing that as a message that is being kind of aggressively pushed forward by Democratic leadership as a counter message. I mean, we saw what just reacting to and criticizing Trump, and now by extension Musk, gets us. There has to be a yes and then an and, or a criticism and then an and. What has your reaction been, and what are some of your suggestions for Democratic leadership to have a positive vision on this front, even in the midst of chaos? What can break through the noise that connects well with this criticism of billionaires?
I think they've really got to offer an affirmative vision of okay, they've done step one, which is identify the right villain, the billionaires who are running this country, who are literally taking money out of poor people's pockets to pad their own. That's great. We've got step one in this 2-step plan. And the second is to offer an affirmative alternative that would do the opposite, that would tax the wealthy, that would regulate corporations' ability to price gouge people, that would make sure that people not just have enough to get by, but have a little bit of breathing room to take their kids to Disney World or whatever, or take their kids to a baseball game. Right now, there are a lot of families who just feel like they can't do that. And Democrats really aren't doing anything to bring down those costs, to make it more affordable to have a 2-bedroom house when you've got kids. I think they've got to offer policy solutions for stuff like that instead of, a lot of Democrats right now are talking about the price of eggs. if you've been to the grocery store lately, if you've been able to buy them, they've been expensive. We can sit here and talk about Trumpflation or egg prices or whatever, but what we're not seeing from either party, to be very clear, is how are we going to bring down the price of eggs or other grocery or household staples? I don't know, Claudia Scheinbaum in Mexico has done such a great job on this that I feel like we've got to compare
I'm
here.
so jealous.
Yeah, same. I'm my socialist president in Mexico.
Yeah.
But she's created this basket of goods. It's like a basic basket. It's about $45 in equivalent. Rice, beans, ground beef, milk, eggs, normal stuff for a family. And instead of doing price controls actually at the government level, she bullied Walmart and other retailers in Mexico to sell this basket for $45. And in fact, the price of it over the last year has come down by like 12, 13%. And so, I think Democrats have really got to say, hey, Walmart, stop charging $9 for eggs and instead charge $45 for a basket that'll feed your family of 4. Why aren't we hearing those affirmative policies from Democratic lawmakers instead of this kind of hashtag resist stuff? It's so easy. It's like, it feels very natural for me to be like, hey, groceries should be cheaper for people, and here's a way to do it. I really hope they start embracing that stuff. I think throughout the tax fight, they've got to emphasize that like our vision is taxing these billionaires, not letting them raid your pocketbooks. Right now, we're seeing a little bit of that. I think the other problem is you've got to make sure that you've got Democrats in office who do believe we should tax billionaires. And so I think we've got some work to do there.
Right. And the stuff about the eggs, like, okay, that's the first piece. But we saw this with the pandemic, and I know Biden really won because there was so much outrage about the handling of the pandemic and how horrific things were at the time. But it didn't last, and people basically now think, okay, Trump did the best that he did with the pandemic and the economic collapse that happened and the inflation and greedflation that resulted from that. That was the price gouging. Okay, like there's no villain there that the Democrats have nailed, and that's, I think, because there isn't that second piece that you describe of a solution. When they just react, what do you stand for? And frankly, I'm not sure how we can get them to respond outside of like the polling that you guys are doing, saying that people want a response. I'm concerned that it's still going to just be that piece, as opposed to the party developing an identity for like the first time since, I don't know, the Obama years early on.
I don't know, but I mean, before that, really, you've had this shift in the Democratic Party for the last 45 years as their donors and their elected officials have become wealthy elites as opposed to working class people. They are serving wealthy elites as opposed to working class people. And it's not hard to understand why working class people are searching for something different. And I think instead of, doing the culture war stuff or voting for Lake and Riley and throwing immigrants or trans kids under the bus, Democrats have really got to offer an affirmative vision here of, okay, Republicans are handing the keys to Social Security to Elon Musk, who's going to invest it in his private companies and privatize it and cut grandma off of like the $1,000 she gets a month. And instead say Democrats are going to strengthen Social Security and make sure that it actually provides dignity in retirement. Or instead of raiding Medicaid and Medicare, Democrats are going to make sure that, you've got Medicare, dental, vision, hearing in your old age. Like really offer an alternative. Find the right villain, find Elon Musk, find the billionaires, find the corporations that are doing terrible stuff to American families, and say, not only these guys are bad, but here's what we're going to do instead.
And the Republicans developed a villain in immigrants, and it's been that way, and they've been building towards it since Trump first went down that escalator. I mean, even prior to that. But in 2012, there was a reckoning and saying we have to be more pro-immigration because Romney lost to Obama, which that was a GOP-wide memo, which is insane to think about. But it goes to show that the opposition party can change the political realities of the other party if they choose to fight. And, this is a few days old, but I saw it just today and I headlined it, that we have reached a new record of credit card debt in this country. It's over $1.2 trillion. What do you see as some of the possibilities of that amount of money being put on credit for people? And it seems like a lot of folks are offsetting the cost of living crisis onto credit, and they're, accumulating debt. This is, I feel like, one of the hidden horrors of our economy right now that could really harm people as like this if the Trump administration continues to pursue our austerity. What's your assessment of where people are at largely and where the pitfalls are of relying on some of these traditional economic indicators that don't take something like that into account?
I think, we do have, it's interesting, the Fed actually publishes really good data on household debt, which is how we know that. So I think we just have to look at the entire macro picture and not just, what's the unemployment rate, 4%, okay, we're good, no worries. I think the bigger issue is, who regulates the credit card debt issuers, the CFPB that Elon Musk is shutting down actively. Bank regulators, Republicans are proposing to entirely defund bank regulators as part of their reconciliation package. I think that I don't know if you saw this, but Mark Cuban is like the leading investor in a new exciting fintech startup that's going to let you take equity line of credit out of the equity in your car. So like a home equity line of credit, you can borrow against the value of your house to like do upgrades on your home or send your kids to college or whatever. And so we're gonna take a depreciating asset like a car, and we're gonna let you pull money out of the depreciating asset to, I don't know, pay off your credit card bill or buy your kid a new backpack, and that'll go over well. I think Elon Musk wants to turn Twitter, X into the everything app and is partnering with Visa to make it a new PayPal. And guess what? There's nobody to regulate that either. So I think credit card debt is perhaps, I don't know, the better kind of debt we've got on household balance sheet right now. It's about to be a lot worse. Trump floated the 10% cap on credit card interest rates, and to give him credit, Bernie immediately said, "Great, let's do it." And I think that we've really got to look at this usury issue, and if we want to work on a bipartisan basis to do so, great. I don't think Trump is so serious. And when he got calls from his Wall Street donors about capping credit card interest rates at 10%, I'm sure he's backed off that one.
Yeah, he certainly has. Well, lastly, Liz, how can people support the Groundwork Collaborative, some of the work that you're doing, and if folks want to get involved? And today, actually, we have a day of action to support federal employees. These are the kinds of things we're going to try to promote more. But your work as well, what can people do to support?
Groundworkcollaborative.org. All of our socials are on there. Would love to have you follow us and uplift our work. We've got a bunch of cooking. But I think really keeping an eye on the events around town in DC supporting federal workers is great. And I know our friends at the AFL-CIO have got a bunch of resources on events and actions and litigation there.
Appreciate your time, Liz. Thanks so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.